and welcome to another Then and Now segment. This one is going to be Turtles themed because we're doing a bit of a Turtles week this week. And very excited to show you one of the classic Playmates Turtles, still in package, so we'll be opening this guy. And then the more modern Super 7 Ultimates. So with the Then and Now segment, it's not a one-to-one reproduction using the original mold. It's always an improvement using our modern engineering and techniques with collectibles. So you get to see sort of the ultimate version of this figure that we had back in the 80s or 90s, and aptly named the Super 7 are called Ultimates. So I chose Slash. He's a bit of an interesting character. He has different origins depending on what mythos you go with. So in the old Archie comic series, he wasn't really a turtle. He was just some creature that resembled a turtle that came from Dimension X. You have the cartoons, the 87 cartoon. And that one, he was, I believe, Bebop's pet when they were on the Technodrome in Dimension X. And Rocksteady mutated him with something in order to help them do chores around the Technodrome that they didn't want to do. So they created him that he was their pet. He had this little little bowl he lived in with a plastic tree that was his binky that he loved and was a big part of his character. So he was sort of manufactured, and then you have the more modern, believe it started in 2012, that cartoon. He was Raph's pet, and he accidentally spilled some ooze or mutagen on him, and he turned into, the mutated Slash. So has all sorts of origins. He either was a creature from Dimension X in the comic series, or he was created by either Bebop and Rocksteady or the Turtles. So with this version, he was created, because I think these were more based on the cartoons. Although this one, it says on it, he's from Dimension X. So regardless, we still have this great character. Let's take a look at this original amazing Playmates packaging. You can see here, Playmates, and this isn't the 2020 rehash, which was a one-to-one of these. This is the original 87. This one's coming off the card back a little bit, so I don't feel as guilty opening it. But you can see him here with Raph on the front of the packaging, which I think is kind of fun because, like I said, in the more modern version, it was Raph's pet versus Bebop's pet. He also says pizza stinks in a little box on the front, and he's sort of the opposite of everything in the Turtles. He hates pizza, he hates parties, he hates pranks, so he's more of a straight-laced guy. That's the polar opposite of the Turtles. So, which is common in most mythos with villains, so it makes sense. But these had that great list of characters on the back of the packaging where you get to see all these amazing figures that were out or coming out. And then, of course, a look at the accessories and that little bio you get to clip. And then pizza points, which was something we did. You could redeem them for some accessories and items in the catalog at the time. I cannot remember what was in that catalog. But I really like this close-up with the accessories. A lot of figures don't do this anymore. They don't explain exactly what their accessories are called. This one has Nasty Nunchaku, Mutant Mace, a razor-sharp gnarly knife, and then a Psycho Sai, which is kind of fun because he's a reflection of Raphael, so he has the Sai. So this is something cool they used to do on Playmates here, show you the accessories and kind of go over them. And then they just had them here on the window in the front. The Turtles had these brackets where you'd have to separate the weapons from them, almost like they were attached by sprues, like a lot of modern model kits are. And they were always this monotone singular color. There were not painted accessories for the most part. With these figures, everything was just one color. So then we fast forward to the modern equivalent of the Super 7 Ultimates. So looking at this box, drastically different. It's a box, not a card back, and it's reminiscent of the Turtles lair with the sewer. You got some graffiti and fun callouts there. And then you got the figure in a window box in the front. So you still got that plastic window, but immediately you can see these accessories are painted. They are not the original accessories, although these figures do include versions of the original accessories, which I'll show you as well. And then you get around to the back of the box, and then you get a little bio on the character there, and basically telling you he's an evil turtle from Dimension X. But nothing showing the other products in the line, nothing showing the accessory callouts, so I kind of missed that. But these figures are about what's inside the package and not the package, although if I had a vote on the package here, the Playmates package still wins because it's got that great vintage look with the characters on the front here, and then the callouts to what else is in the line and all the little wacky figures they had with the Turtles. So let's pop this guy open and check him out. Well, like I said, this is already coming off the card back, so it shouldn't be too difficult to open this, and I don't feel as guilty opening an old figure like this, but I could still preserve it together on the card back here, because I really like this card back art with the old Playmates figures. And they didn't really do this kind of design with the new versions that came out starting in 2020. I could show you the Slash right here. You can see it's a little bit different design, although they kind of had them packaged the same way. They don't have this great turtles fighting other turtles sort of thing on the front. So here he is. He's doing his best Super Mario Brothers impersonation where he's hitting one of those mystery blocks. So we'll take him out here. Give you a little close-up. You can see, even for the time, a lot of great detail going on this guy. They got multiple color applications, and they're pretty tight. I mean, look at those teeth. The teeth here, despite the fact of being out when it did, they're not bleeding all over the place. They're very exact. The eyes look great too. The small eye and that larger eye. And then he's got these additional parts, that little bit of armor that go on him, the shoulder armor and the claws, and he's got this great belt, which is functional. You could put the sai in the back, and it's got like a little grenade on it and stuff. But the belt itself, as you can see, is still kind of monotone. There's no other additional paint applications, so all the accessories are all just one color on the figure. These were always easy to balance. They had a good center of gravity. Never had any problems with them, but they also had peg holes on the feet. But as far as articulation, you got your arms would go up and down, but they also went side to side. So they had an extra little joint here in the elbows. There was no additional elbow articulation. The legs, they pretty much went up and down. There was no additional. You got a little side to side, but that was really it. There was not a whole lot of foot articulation, did not exist. Knee articulation did not exist. Waist articulation, not so much with these characters. They wouldn't turn the waist, but the head would turn a little bit. And he has that nice windblown look for his bandana there, or Hachikama, whatever you want to call it. So then he has his accessories. These were just kind of taped in. And of course, these were always like scary and overemphasized with the spikes on them and things like that. That was just kind of for the period. Everything was kind of very primal and weird and large. My favorite accessory was this jagged sai that included with him. So a very serrated edge on it as well. And that fit nicely in the belt here. We can give you a little close-up of him with his weapons. So these weapons were easy to stick in the hands, not too difficult, not like modern hands where we have to fuss around with the fingers. There were no additional hands on these figures. They just kind of held what they came with, and that was it. They just had a whole bunch of accessories. And oftentimes you would get accessories with these figures that were never making an appearance on the show. They were just thrown in there to give you a little bit more value with the character. But that was basically it with Slash. I did like how they had additional paint applications on the shell with all these little spikes for his snapping turtle-ness and then his tail. So that was pretty great. I mean, for the time, there was a lot of paint applications on this little guy. I don't think you appreciate it. This was still in the, I believe this was the early 90s or late 80s, 1990. So for 1990, this was pretty great for all these paint applications. And I don't know if you can make out the tag on there, $4.29. So at the time, under $5, you got a figure with a dozen paint applications on it, really tight, really great paint applications, a bunch of accessories, nice card back. So sort of the golden age of collecting at that point. But this is Slash from 1990, and we're going to transition forward now to, I think this guy just came out in 2022, and take a look at his modern day equivalent in the Super7 line. So I already went ahead and opened them. Just comes right out of the top of the box here in the sleeve. Contain my greatest nemesis, these little wire ties. They're always a pain. You have to take the time to unwind them. They have a little strip of metal in them, so you can't really cut them easily with scissors. So I just kind of popped that out for the sake of speeding this along. And then taking our little Slash figure out here, which is a big Slash figure. I mean, if you look at Slash compared to original Slash, much bigger. I want to say probably twice the size, maybe 2 to 3 times if you look at the bulk of him as well. Immediately you could tell, let's get you a nice close shot, the detailing just immediately stands out. I mean, look at the belt. Now we got the 2 skulls painted there in the front. We didn't have that on the other belt. We have additional colors. Before it was just all purple. Now we have black, we have yellow on the emblem. You get on the back, there's a black section of the belt. It was all purple before. You look around at everything else is kind of consistent except the claws now are painted, so not just purple like they were in the original figure. And that shell has a little more depth to it. Much better paint applications on it. It's got multi colors on it. It's also kind of layered before it was molded onto him. This is still molded onto him, but it's sticking out over the top of the body. And you can see those slashes on his shell are a little bit more pronounced. So altogether, it's just way better paint applications. But even at that time, that other one was still impressive. You look up here at the bandana. This is a lot, I don't want to say flimsy, but it's softer than the other one was a stiff sort of piece. So it gives a little bit more movement there. The eye has a little depth to it, and the teeth are even more jagged and frightening than they were in the original version. But this is really well done, still keeping true to everything on this design. You can see it's very similar, but it's a huge evolution in terms of bringing it to modern day standards, giving it a little bit more texture, giving it a little depth on the scales there, giving it a little bit more color options. Now you get these little wristbands here as well. So taking this and just making it to the next level. Now this one had a little pocket on the back for the side. This one has that pocket too. This one also has a pocket for another weapon on the side here. This one has a couple of little notches here for other pieces that you could put on as well, even on the front over here. So you could really arm this guy up to the teeth, like you couldn't with this guy. So you just get to carry a little bit more with the figure. So some things we have that we didn't have in the original, because this is the ultimate version of that figure, is we have ourselves an alternate head here. So you could switch out the head and give him a different grimace. This is truer to the original face, but we can mix and match this up, and I'll show you that in a second. And then we have our weapons. Now the weapons are very similar to the originals, but these are painted. So basically, I would imagine if we had the same kind of figure production capabilities back then, this is what all the weapons would have looked like. They would have been multicolors. They would have been painted. I mean, you look at this is an additional weapon that wasn't even included with the original figure. So this is new here. You have that weird spiky sword now has got the knuckles painted separately, so that sticks out. You got his mace that was in the original one. These are a little trickier to get out because they're all kind of secure in the package here. But the mace here sticks out, and this is multiple colors as well. So not only do they have that nice silver on the top, but they have little spikes along the club there. And then, of course, my favorite, the Psycho Sai, which I bet is going to be tricky to get out. Nope. The Psycho Sai here looks even better painted, and that should fit right in the belt there. It does comfortably, so that's nice in that groove, just like it did on the original figure. I guess this side one here is maybe for this new dagger. It's just kind of thin to fit in there. Yep, it kind of fits in there. So if you wanted to put that in all the way down, you get a nice little holster for this side. And this is probably for the throwing stars I see in here. So we'll get to that in a second. We also have alternate hands, which wasn't included in the original figure, but now we're in sort of the space in collecting where everything has to have multiple hands to be desired now by collectors. I'll take those out in a second, but basically you could switch out the hands and they have the blades on them, so you don't need to worry about that. So these are, I think these are sufficient for weapon holding hands, but there are additional weapon holding hands. There are closed fists and there are gesturing hands as well. So it just gives you a little bit more options in terms of what you want to do with the figure. And then below we have additional hands for the other side. So you could choose from an assortment of hands, and we'll do our hand test like we usually do. And then we have the accessories here. Which is, it's odd they went with this, but I get what they were going for. So on the turtles, like I said, you had these pieces where all the weapons were attached to, and you had to break them free or twist them free from it. They came in sort of like this surrounding frame, but as you saw with this character, he didn't have that. He just had the weapons right there. You could just take them right out of the box. So this is going for sort of that style with the characters at the time. So if you wanted, you could still have him sporting that 1990 look with these original accessories and the same callback colors as the original, so nothing different there. They added a few accessories. Now the Turtles had other things in the box beyond their base weapons just to give them a little more value. they had throwing stars, and they had other little knives and things, just because it was pretty basic. They didn't have much, just like it would have just been a bow for Donnie, but giving him some throwing stars and some pizza wedge knives just gives it a little bit more value to the figure. This one also includes some grenades. He didn't have grenades in the original version, but he does here. He has these nice throwing stars that you can put on his belt, and he has these nice grenades to give this character a little bit more functionality. So that's kind of cool, and you'd need a bigger hand for the grenade holding, so that kind of makes sense. Now, I don't see a way to clip these onto his front belt. I think this is more designed for the stars, but with this little groove here, you could just sort of clip it onto the belt, if you found like a pocket, just to get it in any way you wanted like that. So it gives you the option of just clipping it on anywhere on the belt. So that's kind of fun. But the stars here are really designed to go, whoop, there goes that one, are really designed to go onto the belt on these little holders and give you that look that he's a full-fledged ninja carrying these things around on his belt. And then you could put them in the hands here and throw them, well, pretend to throw them, but that's in essence what it could do. So why don't I give you a close-up here now and show you what he looks like with the alternate hands on. So you can see him here sporting a Psycho Sai. I love the Psycho Sai. And in the other hand holding a grenade, just to look kind of tough. But obviously you could put any arrangement of hands or any arrangement of weapons in these figures. We got him decked out here with all his throwing stars and gear. But that's, you know, essentially he could do a lot more than the original Turtle, and that's kind of the design. When you go to these ultimate versions of figures, you want to show that evolution, and this guy has a ton of evolution in him. The painted accessories, the additional hands, the head, he's just got a lot going on for him. So as always, we like to do a hand test just to show you how difficult it is. I haven't tried the Super7 in a while. I've done pretty much every other figure, so that came off really easy. There's no joint on the, or actually there is. There's a little joint here, but this joint is going in different directions. See, most of the joints usually bend in toward the hand and away from the hand. This one is going up and down toward the thumb and toward the bottom of the hand. So I think it's a little sturdy because you're not pulling against where that joint would be. So it's got a little bit more strength that way. So that one popped out, and this one popped in really easy. So that is your hand test. This is one of the easier ones to switch your hand on, and I appreciate that. I'll do a head test on this one. It's a little tougher. His head doesn't want to come off. So we got this ball in there, which always worries me because it's tough to get a head to get that pressure on a ball joint. But this one, I think I got it in. Yep. So this one's on there. That wasn't too difficult, I got to say. For what I usually struggle with, this head came on pretty easy. So there's the hand and the head test. Very easy to manipulate this guy. I think he turned out pretty great. Why don't we get a little last minute side-by-side? Changed my mind before we do our final shot. I wanted to go over his other modern features, including articulation. So we showed you with the vintage slash, he moved at the arm here, pivoting out with the elbow, shoulder articulation, leg articulation, and just a little bit on the head. This guy's got his full range of articulation that we see in modern figures. So the head's on a ball joint, so it can move every which way here. The wrist has articulation. The hand has articulation, like I showed you could move up and down. The elbow has articulation, just like the other figure. But now we also have those pivoting elbows that we see in modern figures. And then we have shoulder articulation two ways. You can go up and do jumping jacks and out. And then with the legs, we see that same articulation. We're moving out and up. And then we also have the knee articulation that we see in modern figures. The feet have articulation that we see in modern figures. So much more to today's standards than the originals. So this guy's a fully articulated action figure. Then these were, at the time, this was considered fully articulated. So they still brought the same sort of stylistic elements to it, but again, this is the engineering of a modern character. He's expected to have more than 10 points of articulation, which is double to triple the amount of articulation that these older figures had. So he brings all that sort of engineering agency to the figure that they didn't initially have. At the time, it was either too costly or just wasn't developed in a manner that wouldn't make the components huge. So today we're able to do this kind of articulation and still keep the figure in perspective to itself and its scale. Before, when we did articulation like that, the joints just got bigger because you had the pins in them and it needed to make the joints a little bit bigger. So now we're able to do this on a smaller scale with modern engineering. So they're able to keep this guy proportionally the same. So that's another great feature to it. Now let's get on to our side-by-side comparison. So here we have our guys again. Wanted to show you side by side what they look like. So you can see them here back to back spinning around. Featuring their weapons. Still have a completely similar design, but obviously the newer version is much bigger than the original version. Has so much more depth in the paint applications and the design of the figure, but it's still pretty true to that original. They didn't deviate too much and go a completely drastic direction with it. They kept it pretty much like the Playmates version of the figure and just kind of just did better paint applications, just did better weapon paint applications, just did better everything with it. So that's great that you can see they're clearly inspired by this original. They're taking that classic style of the figure and just making it the best it could be in modern times, which is exactly what our Then and Now series is about. It's about evolution of going from this to this and still keeping a lot of inspiration from something like this. So it's a great way to sort of honor this legacy of this figure into this new line. I mean, it's a really great line. If it makes you super nostalgic for those old Playmates figures. And like I said, there's a lot of turtles out there. You can get things from NECA that look exactly like the cartoon series, which I think is kind of the gold standard. Playmates is re-released that classic vintage line again, so it's making its way out the shelves. And then you got Super7 doing this sort of ultimate version of these old Turtles. And then we showed you Best Action. They're doing their own version of Turtles from the Loyal Subjects, including the arcade damage versions. So a lot of turtle love out there. It's hard to really land on any one thing. If you're a turtle collector, it's great. I also think it's kind of a problem to have. There's just too much. But if you like these classic turtle lines, but you kind of want to see a more modern aesthetic, I mean, this Ultimates lines is a great way of doing that, where it gives you everything. And if you want to display it classic style, you can display it classic style. If you want to display it with a new version of the character in a new age style, you could do that. So it just gives you more options in terms of how you want to display it. But it definitely is the ultimate version of this figure. So I think it's very aptly named, this line. So that was our look at Slash. He's one of my favorite characters. I never had him until now. My brother had him in the original line. And, if you were a kid in the 90s or the 80s, you didn't share a lot. Your toys were your toys and your siblings' toys were their toys and you didn't mess with them. So I have my own Slash now, very exciting. And then I have a new version of Slash, which is pretty cool. So this guy you can't get. If you want him in package, you're looking around 100, 150, something like that. The new version, much less. You get him for about 60 bucks. He could be through Big Bad Toy Store, Entertainment Earth, your local comic store, wherever they sell these Ultimates. I believe he just came out, so a 2022 wave. I don't see a date on here. Nope. This says 2021 on the box, but I think they shipped in 2022 toward the end. So this is the latest wave of Turtles Ultimates that came out. There's obviously more coming. So we'll have a link to acquire this one if you want them, but there'll be more there and you can pre-order more. And they've pretty much been doing every single figure that came out in the original 90s line, in this Ultimates line. It seems that's where they're going with it. They've done a ton so far. So we're on, I think they have up to 7 or 8 waves that you can pre-order now. The first 6 are out. So check those out if you want to see more Turtles. But I think this covers it for now. We'll have more Then and Now segments in the future. I'm trying to come up with more ideas. Please let me know if you have anything you'd like to look at. I'm thinking maybe Masters of the Universe would make a great one because there's a lot of modern equivalents of those. But I'm open to anything. I'll try to make it happen if I could dig up the original vintage version of the character. So as always, let us know in the comments what you think, what you'd like to see. Like, subscribe, and follow for more content. Stay tuned. We got some new stuff coming out. We're not just looking at vintage stuff. We'll be looking at some new figures coming out, although this guy's pretty new. And that's all for this time. We will see you guys next time.